The smell of smoke hit me before I saw it. My heart stopped as I ran into the dressing room, and there it was. My wedding dress. My mother's last gift. Burning. The lace melting like paper, the veil turning black. I screamed, but it was too late. The fire alarm blared, the bridesmaids screamed, and she stood there. His mother, holding the lighter. Her words were ice cold. "You're not marrying my son. Not in that dress. Not ever." I thought my wedding was over that day. But I was wrong. It was just the beginning. The morning of my wedding felt like something out of a dream. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, scattering golden flecks across the white gown hanging by the window. My gown. The one my mother had designed before she passed. Hand-sewn pearls, soft lace sleeves, every stitch made with love. My bridesmaids bustled around the room, laughing, curling hair, painting lips. Someone played music. I barely heard it over the rush of my heartbeat. Today I was marrying Ethan, the man who had promised me forever. My phone buzzed. "Ethan, can't wait to see you walk down the aisle, my love." I smiled, tears stinging my eyes. "Mom," I whispered softly to the air, "you'd be proud." But behind that warm glow of happiness, something tugged at the edge of my nerves. Ethan's mother, Margaret. From the start she'd made it clear. She didn't think I was good enough for her son. Too ordinary, too emotional, too me. Every visit turned into polite hostility. Every conversation a battlefield hidden behind fake smiles. Last night when she'd hugged me goodnight, her perfume had made my stomach twist. "Sleep well, dear," she'd whispered. "Tomorrow will be unforgettable." At the time I thought she meant it sweetly. Now I wasn't so sure. "Romy," my bridesmaid Ava called, snapping me from my thoughts. "Margaret's here. She says she wants to see the dress before you put it on." My stomach tightened. "Now," Ava shrugged. "She said she just wants to make sure it's perfect." I hesitated but nodded. "All right, let her in. Just keep an eye on her, okay?" Minutes later, Margaret swept into the room, dressed in navy silk, her diamonds glinting like small threats. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Romy," she said, walking toward the dress. "So this is the gown. Quite sentimental, isn't it? Your mother made it." "Yes," I said carefully. "It's the last thing she ever sewed." She reached out, brushing her fingers along the delicate lace. "Lovely. Fragile though. Just like old dreams." Ava shot me a warning look. Margaret turned toward me, her tone syrupy sweet. "I'll just check that the hem isn't uneven. Can't have you tripping down the aisle, can we?" Before I could respond, she slipped into the adjoining room with the dress. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Ava frowned. "What's taking so long?" The faint smell hit first, smoke. First I thought someone was burning incense. But it grew thicker, sharper. "Do you smell that?" I whispered. Then a bridesmaid screamed from the other room. "Fire! Romy, the dress is on fire!" Ran. The sight stopped my heart. My gown, my mother's final gift, was burning. Flames danced across the lace like cruel laughter, the veil curling into black ash. And through the smoke I saw her. Margaret. Standing there, holding a lighter. Her face was calm, almost peaceful. "You're not marrying my son," she said quietly. "Not in that dress. Not ever." My knees gave out. The room blurred, and the fire alarm screamed above us. All I could think was that my mother's touch, her last piece of me, was gone. The next few minutes felt like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. Smoke filled the bridal suite, alarms screeched, and chaos swallowed every bit of joy the morning had promised. Ava pulled me back as a firefighter burst in, shouting, "Everyone out!" I stumbled, my throat burning from the acrid smell of melted lace. My wedding dress, my mother's creation, was nothing but a heap of blackened threads on the floor. Margaret stood in the corner, covering her mouth, pretending to cry. "It was an accident," she wailed. "I was lighting a candle for good luck. It just caught fire." Her fake sobs made my stomach turn. I wanted to scream, to accuse her right there, but all I could do was stand frozen, watching the dress that once held my mother's warmth dissolve into smoke. The firefighters doused the flames. The room went quiet except for the steady drip of water and my ragged breathing. Ethan rushed in moments later, panic in his eyes. "Romy, are you okay?" I nodded weakly, pointing to the ashes. His gaze followed my hand. His jaw tightened. "What happened?" Margaret spoke first, her voice trembling. "Oh, Ethan, it was awful. I tried to help, but the fabric was too delicate. I must have knocked the candle over." Candle. There had been no candles. Ethan turned to me. "Babe, it was an accident, right?" I opened my mouth but nothing came out. I looked at Margaret. Her eyes dared me to say otherwise. I whispered, "I don't know." He sighed and hugged me. "Let's just postpone. We'll fix this. Don't cry, okay?" He meant well. But he didn't see the truth flickering behind his mother's eyes. The wedding was cancelled. Guests were refunded, flowers taken away. The band packed up their instruments. By nightfall, my dream day had turned into a headline waiting to happen. But something about Margaret's story didn't sit right with me. Later that evening, the photographer who had been taking prep shots called me. "Romy, I'm so sorry about what happened. But I think I caught something strange on camera." He sent a picture. There she was, Margaret, standing behind my gown, lighter in hand, before any smoke had appeared. Her expression, cold, intentional. I stared at the photo until tears blurred it. This wasn't grief anymore. It was rage. I showed the photo to Ethan. He stared at it, frowning. This could have been before she lit a candle. "Ethan, there were no candles," I said quietly. He rubbed his temples. "Romy, please. It's my mother. She'd never." "She would," I whispered. "She already did." But he didn't believe me. That night, I sat alone in my burned-out apartment, scrolling through pictures of my ruined dress. One detail caught my eye. Beneath the torn lining was a small seam, stitched differently. It looked like a pocket. The next morning, I carried what was left of my wedding gown to Mira, the tailor who had once assisted my mother. Her small shop smelled like lavender and fabric glue, familiar and comforting. Myra's eyes widened when she saw the burned bundle. "Oh, Romy, she made this, didn't she? Your mother." I nodded, tears threatening again. "Can you check something for me? I think there's a hidden pocket." She frowned but began working carefully with tweezers and gloves. Minutes passed in silence before she gasped. Inside the charred lining, she found a small envelope, half burned but still sealed. She handed it to me. "It's addressed to you." I recognized the handwriting immediately. My mother's. With trembling fingers, I opened it. "My darling Romy, if you ever find this, it means something has gone wrong. People can hide behind kindness. Listen to your instincts. And remember, the real inheritance is not the dress, but what it protects." The words ended abruptly, the rest burned away. I looked up at Mira, confused. "Inheritance?" She tilted her head. Maybe she meant money. Or property. But it didn't feel like that. Felt like a warning. I went home and searched through old family files. There it was, my mother's estate listed under Hale Holdings, the same company Ethan's family owned. My heart dropped. Could Margaret have known about this? I opened the file further. Several recent transactions had been made under my name, all digitally signed. Except I never made them. Someone had forged my signature. I scrolled down. The approval name read, Margaret Hale. My hand shook. She didn't just hate me. She wanted to erase me. I called Ethan, voice trembling. "Did your mom ever handle my mother's accounts?" He sounded confused. "Maybe years ago. She helped manage Hale Holdings after your mom passed." "Why?" "Because my inheritance is missing," I said quietly. "And your mom's name is on it." He went silent. "Romy, that's not possible." "Then check," I said. "Look at your family's financial logs." He didn't call back that night. I couldn't sleep. I kept rereading my mother's note. What it protects. What had she meant? As I drifted off, a notification popped up. Noah, a friend who worked at a private bank, had sent me a message. Romy, we need to talk. I found something in your mother's trust file. It's been tampered with. My heart pounded. Noah met me at a small cafe the next morning, laptop already open. Romy, your mom was brilliant, he said. She set up something called a protective clause in her estate. It activates automatically if her assets are tampered with. I leaned closer. What does that mean? It means, he said, grinning slightly, your stepmother just tripped a legal alarm. He turned the screen toward me. An alert blinked across the document. Unauthorized activity detected. Trustee rights transferred to beneficiary. In simple words, that meant everything Margaret stole now legally reverted to me, and every transaction she made was recorded as evidence. Covered my mouth. She tried to destroy me, and she destroyed herself. Later that day, Ethan finally called. His voice was quiet, ashamed. Mom admitted to moving some money. She said it was for safekeeping. Romy, I don't even know what to say. Say you believe me. He hesitated. I don't know what to believe anymore. The silence between us felt like goodbye. Hung up. That night, Margaret showed up at my door. Her perfect composure was cracking. Romy, you've made a terrible mistake. You don't understand how the world works. I crossed my arms. I understand theft. Her voice rose. Your mother wasn't perfect. She owed us money. I was only reclaiming what was rightfully ours. I laughed bitterly. Rightfully. You forged my signature and burned her memory. You took what wasn't yours because you couldn't control what was. For the first time she looked afraid. You can't prove. I already did, I cut her off. And the court will too. Her face went pale as I showed her Noah's report. She whispered, You're making a mistake. No, I said softly. You made one. You thought burning a dress would erase the woman who made it. The courtroom smelled of paper and tension. Cameras lined the back wall, reporters whispering like vultures. Margaret sat across from me, her pearl necklace trembling with every nervous breath. Ethan sat behind her, pale and silent. The prosecutor spoke first. Your Honor, this case involves inheritance fraud, forgery, and arson. Arson. The word echoed in my chest. They played the footage. The photo of Margaret holding the lighter, the bank transactions, the digital forgery. Margaret's lawyer tried to paint her as confused, grieving, misunderstood. Then it was my turn. I stood voice steady. She burned the only piece of my mother I had left. Not out of grief but greed. She wanted my inheritance, my husband, my peace. But she forgot something. Truth doesn't burn. The courtroom fell silent. Ethan looked up at me, guilt in his eyes. When the verdict came, it was swift. Guilty on all counts. Margaret broke down, shouting, I did it for you, Ethan. Everything I did was for you. Ethan whispered, No, Mom. You did it for yourself. After the trial, he approached me outside. Romy, I don't expect forgiveness. But, sorry. For not believing you. I nodded, tears stinging. You can't rebuild something that's already ash. But you can start new. He nodded slowly. Maybe someday you'll let me. Maybe, I said. As he walked away, I looked up at the courthouse and whispered, Mom, we won. After the verdict, I thought I'd feel relief. But peace doesn't arrive like a sunrise. It sneaks in slowly, hesitant, like it's testing whether it's finally safe. For days, I stayed in my apartment surrounded by silence and old photos of my mother. Every corner of my home still smelled faintly of burned fabric, as if the memory of that dress refused to fade. Then one morning a package arrived. No sender. No note. Just a small wooden box. Inside was a USB drive labeled, For Romy, from Amara. My mother's name. My heart stopped. I plugged it in, hands trembling. The screen lit up with folders, designs, sketches, fabric blueprints, hundreds of files. All her original work, preserved digitally. Click the first one. It was my wedding gown, the one that burned. Every thread, every bead, every layer rendered with precision. At the bottom, she'd written in her delicate handwriting, "If this dress ever burns, rebuild it. Because love deserves another chance." I burst into tears. For months, I'd been haunted by that fire, thinking it marked an ending. But my mother had planned even for that. She'd given me a way to start again. That same week, I met Noah for coffee. He smiled softly when he saw my tear-streaked face. "You found something, didn't you?" I nodded, showing him the drive. "She saved everything." He leaned back. "Then maybe it's time you stop mourning and start creating. For her. For you." Those words stuck. By evening, I'd turned my apartment into chaos. Sketches on the walls, fabrics across the table, candles burning safely this time. I started drawing again. Not for a client. Not for a wedding. But for healing. The design that emerged was something new. Half inspired by the burned dress, half by rebirth itself. A gown of soft ivory silk, embroidered with silver threads shaped like rising smoke. I called it the Phoenix. Weeks passed, and I decided to launch my first exhibition. I named my boutique Amara Atelier, after my mother. People came, designers, influencers, journalists. Among them stood Ethan. He stayed quiet, respectful, watching from the back. When the crowd thinned, he approached. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "She would have loved it." I smiled faintly. "She'd be happy it rose from ashes." He hesitated. "My mom, she asked me to tell you she's sorry." I looked at him, searching his eyes. "And what about you?" He exhaled. "I'm sorry too." For a moment, I saw the man I once loved, the one who believed in forever before everything caught fire. But forever looked different now. He nodded. "Then maybe this is goodbye." He smiled sadly. "Or maybe it's peace." As he left, I turned toward the mannequin draped in the Phoenix. The silk shimmered under the light, soft and powerful all at once. "We did it, Mom," I whispered. "We built beauty out of what tried to destroy us." The letter arrived on a dull gray morning. No return address, just the seal of the state correctional facility. Inside, a short note. "Romy, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to tell you something before I'm transferred. Please come. Margaret." I stared at the paper for a long time. Part of me wanted to tear it apart. Another part, the one my mother had nurtured, whispered, "Go." The prison was colder than I imagined. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as a guard led me to a small visiting room. When Margaret entered, I barely recognized her. The once perfect hair was gray at the roots, her designer clothes replaced by a faded uniform. But her eyes, those sharp, controlling eyes, still held that glimmer of power. "Romy," she said softly, sitting down. "You look stronger." I didn't respond. She sighed. "I didn't call you here to beg. I know what I did can't be forgiven." "Then why am I here?" I asked quietly. Her hand shook. "Because you need to know something about your mother." My heart pounded. "What are you talking about?" She hesitated, her voice trembling. "Amara didn't just leave you money. She left something else, something I didn't want you to find. That's why I destroyed the dress." Anger flared. "You burned my mother's memory over greed." She shook her head. "No, fear. Because what she hid could destroy my company, and everything I built on your father's name." Froze. "What are you saying?" Margaret lowered her gaze. "Before your father died, he discovered I'd been embezzling funds. Amara helped him build a backup record. It's inside her design archives." My breath caught. "Her digital files." She nodded. "The USB drive. There's a hidden folder, password protected. It contains proof of everything." My pulse raced. "Why tell me now?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because I'm done fighting ghosts. Maybe you'll know what to do with the truth." I stood, heart pounding with a strange mix of fury and pity. "You wanted control so badly you lost everything. But I'm not you, Margaret. I don't destroy what I can fix. As the guard came to escort her out, she whispered, "I wish I'd loved like that." That night I searched the USB drive again. Buried deep inside was a folder named A+E Forever. My parents' initials. When I opened it, hundreds of files appeared. Ledgers, scanned documents, emails. All proof of corporate embezzlement under Margaret's name. She hadn't just burned my dress. She'd been burning lies for years. I called Amara's lawyer the next morning. "We'll need to reopen your father's case," he said gravely. "This could expose decades of corruption." He nodded. "Then let's end it the right way." The courtroom looked the same as before, but everything inside me had changed. The last time I'd been here I was broken. Now I was ready. Margaret sat across from me, thinner, quieter. The arrogance was gone. Her lawyer whispered beside her, but she barely listened. The judge nodded to me. "Ms. Romy Hale, please approach." I took a deep breath and began. "Your Honor, my parents built Hale Holdings with integrity. Before my father's death, he uncovered financial theft tied to Margaret Hale. My mother, Amara, created a record, hidden inside her design archives, to protect the truth if anything happened to them." The prosecutor displayed the evidence. Screenshots of embezzled funds, falsified reports, corporate blackmail emails. Gasps rippled through the room. Margaret looked down, eyes wet. The judge's voice was calm but stern. "Mrs. Hale, do you confirm these transactions were yours?" She nodded faintly. "Yes, I was greedy. I thought I could rewrite the story." I whispered to myself, "You tried to erase mine." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed, microphones waved, questions shouted. "How does it feel to finally win?" I smiled softly. "It's not about winning. It's about healing." Noah walked beside me, carrying my mother's old sketchbook. He grinned. "You know what this means, right? Her designs can go public now, untainted." I looked up at the sky, golden with late afternoon light. "Then let's make them shine." Weeks later, I hosted the grand reopening of Amara Atelier. This time, the showcase featured a new line called Legacy. Each gown symbolized a stage of my story. Love, betrayal, fire, truth, rebirth. As I stood on stage, applause thundered. I spoke into the microphone, voice steady. "This isn't just fashion. It's forgiveness woven into fabric." My mother taught me that beauty born from pain never fades. It transforms. In the front row, Ethan sat silently, pride and regret written all over his face. But this wasn't his story anymore. It was mine. When the lights dimmed and cameras flashed, I closed my eyes, hearing my mother's voice again. Soft, strong, eternal. "Love deserves another chance." Smiled. "We got it, Mom." A year had passed since the fire. Sometimes it felt like a dream I'd finally woken from. Other times it still flickered behind my eyelids when I tried to sleep. Amara Atelier had flourished beyond anything I could have imagined. We weren't just designing dresses. We were restoring hope. Brides who'd lost family, love, or homes came to us for something deeper than beauty. They came for healing. But peace, it seems, always knocks right before the next storm. One morning, my assistant Clara walked into the studio holding a sealed envelope. "Romy, this came by courier. No sender name, just this address." Tore it open. Inside was a short handwritten letter. "Dear Romy, you don't know me but I know her. Margaret Hale. I'm her cellmate. She's sick. Really sick. She talks about you every night, about the fire, the lies, the money. She asked me to send this to you before she's transferred to hospice care." Folded within the letter was a smaller note, shaky and faint. "Romy, I see the fire every night. Can't undo it. I can't undo what I stole or who I became. But please believe this, I loved Ethan. I wanted to protect him, not destroy him. I burned the dress because I thought if I stopped the wedding, I could stop my past from repeating. I was wrong. You are stronger than I ever was. Don't let my ashes haunt you. Margaret." I stared at the paper, unable to move. Clara whispered, "Are you okay?" I smiled faintly, tears forming. I think, for the first time, yes. That night, I drove to the hill overlooking the city, the same place Ethan had proposed before everything fell apart. The skyline glittered like shattered glass turned to diamonds. I pulled Margaret's letter from my coat pocket and held it up against the wind. "You burned what you feared," I whispered. "But fear doesn't win here anymore." I set the letter alight. The flame danced briefly before fading into the cold air. For a moment I felt no anger, no vengeance, only release. The next morning Ethan called. His voice was soft, careful. "I heard about the letter." "I know," I said quietly. He hesitated. "She's gone, Romy." Closed my eyes. "Then I hope she found peace." "So do I," he said. There was a long silence. Then he asked, "Can I see you? Just once?" I paused, watching sunlight pour through the studio window. "No, Ethan," I said finally. "Some chapters are better honored by staying closed." He sighed. "You always knew how to end things beautifully." "Not end," I corrected softly. "Transform." When I hung up, I turned toward the newest dress on my mannequin, a flowing ivory gown with hand-embroidered phoenix wings across the back. It wasn't for sale. It wasn't for display. It was mine. The girl who once stood in ashes was gone. In her place stood a woman who could turn loss into light. The night of the gala glowed brighter than any I'd ever imagined. Crystal chandeliers glittered above us, and the runway shimmered like water under light. The announcer's voice echoed across the hall. "Tonight, we honor the woman whose designs redefined resilience, Amara Hale." My heart clenched. A slideshow filled the massive screen. Photos of her early sketches, her first boutique, and finally me, holding the phoenix gown. The audience applauded, rising to their feet. I stood there frozen, a single tear tracing down my cheek. "This award," the host continued, "is presented posthumously to Amara Hale, accepted by her daughter, Romy Hale, designer, survivor, and founder of Amara Atelier." The applause thundered again. I stepped onto the stage, my heart pounding. The microphone felt heavy in my hands, but my voice came out steady. My mother believed fabric could carry emotions, that a thread could hold a story, and that even the torn ones could be sewn again. She once told me, "Every stitch is a second chance." I didn't understand it then. But now, after everything, I do. The crowd was silent. I smiled faintly. A year ago, my wedding dress burned to ash. I thought that fire ended my story. But it was just the spark that began a new one. A soft murmur of emotion rippled through the hall. To everyone who's ever been betrayed, belittled, or broken, remember this: you don't rise by fighting the flames. You rise by becoming the light. The room erupted into applause. Cameras flashed, people stood, and for a moment, I felt my mother beside me again. Her hand warm on my shoulder, her whisper steady. "See, even ashes can glow." Later that night, as the gala emptied and the music faded, I stepped outside. The city air was cool and alive. I held the award close and looked up at the stars. "Mom," I said softly, "you were right. Love deserves another chance. And so do we." I took a deep breath. The night smelled of promise. Back at the atelier, I placed the award beside her framed photo. Below it, a quote I'd engraved read, "She turned fire into fabric and pain into power." And that's how the girl whose wedding was burned became the woman who built an empire from ashes. Sometimes the people who try to destroy your life are the ones who ignite your purpose. Don't fear the fire. Become the flame. If you believe every heartbreak can spark a new beginning, hit red heart, share this story, and subscribe for more cinematic true tales of strength, love, and revenge reborn.